This is Dr.RED Panda.
Did the Trojan War really start because of a beautiful woman? And did it actually happen in history? Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Red Panda, and today we're going to focus on the Trojan War. Once upon a time, in the distant land of Asia Minor, a war broke out. A war that raged for 10 long years, all because of one man's misfortune in love. This wasn't just any war. This was the Trojan War, a saga of love, betrayal, and an infamous wooden horse that led to the fall of an entire city. You've probably heard the story before, but what really happened? Before we get into the so-called War of the Cheated, we need to talk about the mastermind behind the tale, the man who gave us the story of the Trojan Horse, Homer. The Trojan War comes straight from the Iliad, one of Homer's two great epics, collectively known as the Homeric epics. These works are pretty much the only records we have of ancient Greece between the 11th and 9th centuries BCE. Now, who exactly was Homer? That's where things get murky. Some say he was a blind poet who lived around 850 BCE, telling stories of a war that supposedly happened around 1000 BCE. Others argue he never existed at all, that he was just a legend himself. Even back in ancient Greece, people didn't know much about him, but they treated him like a rock star of storytelling. Then, in the skeptical 18th and 19th centuries, some historians started calling the whole thing a hoax, questioning whether the Trojan War was just a myth and whether Homer was even real. We'll come back to that debate later. A seductive golden apple. For now, let's rewind to 1000 BCE and take a look at how Homer painted the picture of the Trojan War. It all started with a golden apple. One day, this shiny little apple rolled up to three powerful goddesses: Hera, queen of the gods; Athena, goddess of wisdom; and Aphrodite, goddess of love. Inscribed on the apple were the words, "For the fairest." Now, you can probably imagine the drama that unfolded. These three divine ladies weren't about to let this go. They were ready to fight for the ultimate title of most beautiful. The argument got so heated that it reached Zeus, the king of the gods. But Zeus, being the wise and experienced ruler that he was, wanted absolutely nothing to do with this mess. Smart move, considering his wife Hera was one of the contenders. So, he decided to pass the responsibility onto a young shepherd named Paris, claiming, "This guy has an excellent eye for beauty." Paris wasn't just any shepherd. His origins were extraordinary. In reality, he was a Trojan prince. But when he was born, a prophecy warned that he would bring disaster upon his homeland. Heartbroken yet fearful, his parents had no choice but to abandon him, sending him away to live as a humble shepherd. One day, under Zeus's guidance, three powerful goddesses descended from the heavens. Hera, the queen of the gods, looked at Paris and declared, "This is the will of Zeus. You must decide which of us is the fairest. Whoever you choose shall receive this golden apple." Paris, ever the smooth talker, hesitated. "But you are all so breathtakingly beautiful. How could I possibly choose?" He had a point. All three were stunning, so how could he judge based on looks alone? Well, if beauty wasn't enough, maybe a little incentive would help. Hera stepped forward first. "I am the queen of the gods. Choose me, and I will make you the ruler of all Asia, granting you ultimate power and wealth." Athena, the goddess of wisdom, followed. "Pick me, and I will bless you with unmatched intelligence and invincibility in battle." Finally, Aphrodite, the goddess of love, smiled. "I can't offer you power or victory, but what I can give you is the love of the most beautiful woman in the world." Now, Paris was just a simple shepherd. He didn't care about ruling nations or winning wars. But love, that was something he could get behind. Without hesitation, he handed the golden apple to Aphrodite. And just like that, Aphrodite kept her promise. She guided Paris across the sea to Sparta, where he laid eyes on Helen, the most stunning woman in all of Greece. The moment they met, sparks flew. Under Aphrodite's influence, the two fell madly in love. They wasted no time exchanging genes. And before long, Helen left her homeland, sailing away with Paris to the city of Troy. And that's where they lived happily ever after. Or not. If things had been that simple, Homer wouldn't have had enough material to write the Iliad, let alone split it into two epic volumes. A royal scandal and a furious king. Here's the catch: Helen was already married. And not just to anyone, but to Menelaus, the king of Sparta. So when Menelaus returned home from a trip to Crete, only to find his wife missing and his treasure looted, he was not amused. In fact, he was so shocked that he nearly fainted on the spot. I have treated the Trojans with nothing but respect, and yet they have stolen my wife while I was away. Not only that, they took my gold, too. This is beyond humiliation. This is war. Determined to seek justice, Menelaus turned to his brother, King Agamemnon of Mycenae, the most powerful ruler in all of Greece. Agamemnon was furious. This is an outrage. If we let this slide, what's next? We cannot allow Troy to make a fool of Greece. Prepare for war. We're going to burn that city to the ground. And just like that, the call to arms was sent across Greece. It wasn't just Sparta and Mycenae. Nearly all of Greece answered the call. The Greek army assembled an enormous fleet with hundreds of ships and thousands of warriors. Meanwhile, Troy was no easy target. The city's massive walls had been built by the gods themselves, Apollo and Poseidon no less, making it nearly impenetrable. For 9 years, the Greeks laid siege to Troy. The battles were brutal, but the city refused to fall. Soldiers began to wonder, can we really keep this up for a 10th year? Then, just when it seemed like the war would drag on forever, the cunning hero Odysseus came up with a bold plan. We shall do this and that, Odysseus whispered to the Greek commanders. Then we'll make them think they've won. And so, the Greeks did something unexpected. They burned their own camps and sailed away, seemingly retreating. But before they left behind a massive wooden horse. The Trojans, seeing the Greeks gone and the horse standing tall outside their city, were baffled. Some said it was a trap and should be burned or thrown into the sea. Others believed it was a divine offering. At that moment, a captured Greek soldier was brought before the Trojan king. The soldier claimed, "This horse is a sacred gift from the gods. Whoever possesses it will be blessed with fortune and victory." Blinded by greed and arrogance, the Trojans ignored their doubts. They dragged the colossal wooden horse into their city, celebrating what they thought was their greatest triumph. That night, as the Trojans drank and partied in drunken revelry, hidden Greek soldiers emerged from the belly of the wooden horse. They opened the city gates, letting in the entire Greek army, which had secretly returned under the cover of darkness. By dawn, Troy was reduced to ashes. Had the Trojans inspected the wooden horse more carefully, perhaps history would have been different. Maybe they would have discovered the hidden soldiers and destroyed the trap. But their arrogance, their willingness to trust a random Greek prisoner, and their failure to question the obvious led to their downfall. And thus, the Trojan horse became a symbol of deception, a reminder that sometimes the greatest dangers come disguised as gifts. Myth or history? Did the Trojan War really happen? The Trojan War, if it's real, likely went down around 1200 BCE, smack in the Bronze Age. The setting? Probably the Hizarlik site in modern-day Western Turkey. Back in the 1930s, American archaeologist Carl Blegen got his hands dirty digging there and unearthed layers of ancient ruins. He was pumped, shouting, "This is it! Troy's real, and the war totally happened." Blegen believed Homer's Iliad, while a bit over the top, was rooted in some historical truth. Not everyone's on board, though. Skeptics roll their eyes and say, "Come on, Homer wasn't a historian. He was a poet spinning yarns for kicks. 1,000 ships fighting over one woman? Sounds like a tall tale to me." And so, the Trojan War remains one of history's big, is it or isn't it debates. The Hizarlik sites got some juice. Archaeologists found 9 layers of settlements stretching from the early Bronze Age to Roman times. The Troy 7 layer, dated to around 1200 BCE, is the prime suspect for matching Homer's story. The walls were smashed, hinting at a battle. But no Trojan horse wreckage or "Helen was here" graffiti has turned up, so the jury's still out. Then there's Swiss scholar Emil Faur, who in the 1920s dropped a wild theory. While digging into Hittite records, he spotted two names, Walusia and Tarusa. Farr slammed his fist on the table and said, "That's Troy." Walusia sounds like Elios, the Greek word for Troy, Elios. Bonus points. Walusia was a Hittite vassal state with a king named Alexandru, which kind of vibes with Troy's Prince Alexandros, aka Paris. Cool story, right? But hold up, critics aren't buying it. They argue, Walusia to Elios? That's a stretch, dude. And the Hittite texts don't mention any epic war, let alone a wooden horse or a runaway beauty. At best, the texts suggest Walusia might be linked to Troy, but they're not screaming Trojan War confirmed. Let's talk geopolitics. Hittite records say the Walusia region was a hot mess in the 13th century BCE, caught up in military scuffles. The Greeks, called Ahiowa in the texts, possibly the Mycenaean Greeks, might have been stirring the pot. Take this guy Payamaradu, with Ahiowa's backing, he raised hell in western Anatolia and even booted Walusia's king, Walmu, off the throne. Sound like a Trojan War prequel to you? If Ahiowa were indeed the Mycenaeans, the war's odds of being real shoot up. Problem is, the texts don't flat out say Ahiowa equals Greeks. So the trail goes cold. Fast forward to 1995. Archaeologists at Hazarlik dug up a bronze seal with Luwian hieroglyphs naming two scribes, maybe a husband-wife duo. It dates to the late 12th century BCE, right in the Trojan War's ballpark. Experts geeked out. Whoa, Troy had literate folks. This place was a big deal. But the seal doesn't say Troy or mention a war, so it's a tantalizing hint, not a smoking gun. The whole war over Helen thing feels too rom-com to be true. But what if it wasn't about a woman? What if it was about cold, hard strategy? Late Bronze Age Greece was under pressure from northern Dorian invaders, pushing them to expand eastward toward the Black Sea trade routes. Troy sat pretty on the Dardanelles, a choke point for that traffic. Want the sea? You've got to take Troy. Helen might have just been a sexy excuse for a resource grab. So what's the deal? The Trojan War might be a mashup of fact and fiction. Hazarlik proves there was a hefty city there, likely clashing with Greeks. Hittite texts back up the idea of regional chaos. But the Iliad's decade-long siege, wooden horse, and hero duels? Probably poetic spice. The real story could be simpler. Greeks and Trojans scrapped over trade and turf, and Homer sprinkled some love story magic on top. What do you think? Romantic epic or gritty reality? Hit me with your take. And that's a wrap for this episode of the video. I'm DR.RED Panda. If any of you have your own perspectives, or if you think there are any errors in the video, feel free to leave a comment in the discussion section. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Until next time, take care.